Thank you. Church Property Trustees, Gavin, Holley. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Madam Mayor and councillors, I wish to once again thank the council for the opportunity to be here in front of you this afternoon to speak to the submission by Church Property Trustees in support of council's commitment to a $10 million grant toward reinstatement of the cathedral. CPT is the owner as the trustee of the Cathedral Trust of Christchurch Cathedral. CPT and the diocese have for the past 7 years worked hard to recover from the physical damage caused to its properties as a result of the earthquakes. It's well advanced in its earthquake repair and rebuild program, and it's one of the largest private owners of heritage buildings in the country, with over 70 sites and close to 100 separate listings. To recap, in May 2017, the Bishop exercised her powers under the CPT Act to reserve the cathedral decision on the future of the cathedral for the consideration of Synod. In response to the impending decision by Synod, the government made an offer to CPT in support of the reinstatement option of a $10 million grant, a $15 million suspensory loan, establishment of a joint venture to deliver the reinstatement, establishment of a fundraising trust, and enabling legislation. Excellent progress has been made, of course, on all those matters. Christchurch City Council's response was a vote to support, in principle, a $10 million grant in support of reinstatement. The support offered by the government and Christchurch City Council have been strongly characterised as providing certainty, and this was no doubt a critical factor in Synod's decision to reinstate the cathedral. These commitments remain as conditions of Synod's decision on 9 September 2017 to reinstate the cathedral. I'm here before you today to request that this council confirms its commitment in support of the government's offer to provide a $10 million grant toward reinstatement of the cathedral in a manner that provides the certainty required. CPT asks that, consistent with council's position that the reinstatement option provides certainty, that it carefully considers the potential impacts on the reinstatement project of the timing of funds availability and the imposition of any grant conditions. The total funding required for the 7 to 10 year project is estimated at around $124 million. The resolution of Synod directing Church Property Trustees to bring about the reinstatement of the cathedral comprises terms to be satisfied in order for the project to proceed. This includes, among other things, acceptance of the Christchurch City Council offer and no significant work to commence on each part until funding sufficient to cover the total cost of each part has been guaranteed, inclusive of endowments. The first phase or part of the project, which is the reinstatement of the main cathedral building, requires an estimated $98 million in funding to commence. Consistent with Synod's resolution, Church Property Trustees will require Christchurch City Council funding of $10 million, along with the Crown and Greater Christchurch Buildings Trust funding, to be guaranteed in order to meet the funding requirements of that first phase. The first phase is estimated to take 7 years. The Christchurch City Council grant, proposed in the draft long-term plan to be funded via a targeted rate, would therefore need to be received within 7 years and not 10 years as currently proposed in the draft long-term plan. Consistent with the resolution of Synod, Church Property Trustees cannot commit to the reinstatement of the main cathedral building, that is phase 1, until that $98 million in funding for the estimated 7-year period is assured. Church Property Trustees and the Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Trust, which is the government-created fundraising trust, as future partners in the proposed reinstatement joint venture entity, will be responsible for the reinstatement project, and they view the confirmation of funding, including timing and any conditions, as critical in agreeing to progress the reinstatement. In conclusion, Church Property Trustees supports Christchurch City Council's commitment, as referenced in the draft long-term plan, to contribute to funding of the reinstatement of Christchurch Cathedral through a $10 million grant, and strongly urges Christchurch City Council to amend the long-term plan to ensure that the funding of $10 million toward the cathedral reinstatement is able to be provided within a timeframe of not more than 7 years, as opposed to the current 10 years, in order to provide the necessary level of certainty to enable initiation of the project and successful completion within the 10-year forecast. Church Property Trustees looks forward to the day that it can announce that all necessary support has been secured, critical agreements reached, entities established, and key funding arrangements, including the $10 million from the Council, are secured in order to enable the launch of Phase 1, the reinstatement of the main cathedral building.
Thanks very much, Gavin. Could I start with the reinstatement joint venture? And thank you for the diagram. It was in your original submission, and I found that incredibly helpful, because it's probably something that I and perhaps the city don't have any particular visibility over, because obviously details are still being worked through. But can you give us an idea of when that joint venture agreement is likely to be reached, and have you got any further in terms of appointing a chair?
I have to be careful what I say here. We have Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Trust, our joint venture partner, speaking after us. But I can say that excellent progress is being made on the joint venture agreement. Negotiations have been fruitful. It's a complex agreement, and we're optimistic that in the very near future an agreement will be reached. So that's the answer to the first question. The second question, sorry, was?
The chair, the independent chair?
The chair. So we're working through a process currently of arranging to seek directors and a chair for the joint venture entity. That process is currently underway. Right.
So I just want people to restrict questions to the, to the submission. It's obviously there's a degree of delicacy around some of the arrangements yet to be entered into. So that's why I was keen to know when the joint venture would be established, because I'm sure that will assist. Vicky?
So 2 short questions. Once you have that, do you have any, given that part of the importance of the cathedral was the certainty that it created, do you have any likely start date, is the first question. And the second one is, does it matter to you if we have an agreement with you, the way in which we raise the money? I'm suspecting not. So if we've got an agreement with you to pay a certain amount at a certain time, does it matter to you how we raise it, whether we do it over 10 years?
That would be correct, as long as we have the money at the time that it's needed, and that's the critical aspect.
Yep.
In terms of any idea of starting, the reality is that there's preliminary work that can be undertaken before there's a start to the main Phase 1, being the reinstatement of the main body of the cathedral. But that the main reinstatement can't start until that money that is assured for that project, obviously, to commit to the contracts and the works.
But do you have any sense of when that might be, assuming that all goes to plan?
No, I don't, sorry. To some extent, that's up to fundraising, which maybe the Reinstatement Trust can talk to.
We have got the Reinstatement Trust coming next. Dion?
I was just really wanting on bullet point 4, just to understand what you mean exactly by assured with the funding for starting stage 1. Does that mean that you've got the money in the bank, or is it just a guarantee that, say, the fundraising is going to happen, or what?
So the Synod resolution requires some of the funding to be guaranteed, and it's quite explicit. And I think some of the other funding needs to be assured. Yeah, so there's a combination of the two, but essentially we have to be able to know that we can proceed with certainty, and that the money will come, that the money is there, and that certain other monies will come. For example, we could take an estimate that there will be a level of interest earned on some of the funds. So the interest isn't necessarily guaranteed, but is assured. But there are certain funds that need to be guaranteed, and they include the government funding, the Crown funding, etc.
Yeah, I think it's just there's still a big question mark over the fundraising for that 98 million shortfall.
Yeah, Mike. 30 seconds.
What would be the consequence of the council not changing the time frame from 10 years to 7?
Unless there was some other unexpected funds come in earlier, there's the potential that the start of the project would be delayed. There's a very real prospect of it being delayed.
It's very helpful. Look, thank you very much for your time, Gavin. Good to see you. And that's the